All right, welcome back to another episode of Sidrit's podcast. We have another entrepreneur on here, Rorke Kuttel, who we're going to get to know today. He's got a really exciting project called THEIA, which he's going to let us on even more. Hey, Rorke, welcome.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, man. So let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how and what are you working on?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, my name is Rorke Kuttel. So I think I'll start just by how I kind of got a little bit of exposure to this whole crazy thing called Web3, right? And that really started for me in college in a big way. I studied computer science over here in the States at Dartmouth College. But it was really a degree in computer graphics, a lot of modeling, a lot of animation, that kind of thing. And I specialized in augmented virtual reality design. And I really enjoyed working at the cutting edge of a piece of tech, that was still really in its nascent stages. And just kind of from doing some personal projects and school projects with friends, I kind of stumbled into some of the communities that were doing some of the more leveraged digital asset work, which really became the first big use cases of something like the NFT. I came from a gaming background, and I think I like many others had always thought about that kind of utility of play to earn or play to own in that kind of way. And when I saw something like Decentralized sort of back in 2018, it was like, oh yeah, like that just makes sense. Like that's fun. And
by the way, I own two pieces of plot or two plots of land in Decentralized.
Nice. Yeah, I put up a nice little square for myself back then too. So I obviously, I got a little financial exposure, and when got to stayed involved more at arm's length, really exposed, looking at it from the design lens. And then, was there for some of the earlier big auctions for like big NFT artists, some of the Beeple auctions on Maker's Place back in, 2020, late 2020 territory, where that was just wild. And then obviously kind of stayed hooked enough in that I was around for when the PFP wave started really rolling through. And, obviously with my initial stake, I kind of compounded that and got to ride the wave of that, being integrated broad spectrum. And, that's always a lot of fun, obviously, holding something that appreciates quite significantly. But, while that whole time, I was cognizant of what's really cool about this kind of stuff and what is also really kind of speculative. I knew a lot of the NFT, really what it was kind of a gold rush in 2021 was driven by a lot of speculation, which is fun, but also can run to the end of its fuse, right? Can sort of start to hitter out, and then, people start to get scammed and rugged, and a lot of notable rugs started coming in the summer. And I knew that was inevitably going to kind of pollute what my initial view of like the technology was in the mainstream. Like, just look at gaming. Like, gaming despises NFTs in the mainstream, right? And I think that's kind of a tragedy, but a lot of it is because of some of the ancillary stuff that's kind of gone on in the market, right? And that goes for fungible tokens as well. And so that's really when what came to be my co-founders, Lawrence and Nikita, came to me with what was the initial white paper for THEIA, just initially as kind of an advisory role. They knew I had some market experience. They knew I'd kind of maneuvered, seen some of the way people act, and they were like, hey, is this kind of thing feasible? And I really grasped onto the ethos of the concept back in really September of last year. And we continued to refine it, and we continued to formalize it. We all came together as founders. We then brought in a team of about 8 developers and designers as well, and then we started really cranking this thing out. So that's really kind of my journey from start to where we are now. But I guess to get into what THEIA is really all about.
Tell me.
we're really all about creating, a new home for Web3 communities, but one that is where safety, security, accountability is all paramount, still crystallized into that trustless environment of Web3. We're not trying to come in and take this really centralized approach to due diligence or to community building that sometimes you see. We think that's a bit of an antiquated approach. But really, we want people to be able to, create communities, launch projects, but protect investors from things like rugs, whether it's hard rugs or soft rugs, and protect, communities that co-sign projects and kind of make them accountable and decentralize the due diligence process and really micro verticalize what is an otherwise really horizontal world. Like you go onto OpenSea and it's like, how do you maneuver through that? How do you find, what's cool? How do you resonate with something like, your passion? If I'm a musician or something, or if I'm, this kind of artist, or if I'm this kind of builder, it can be kind of difficult to solve that problem of discovery along with that security element. So that's really what we're trying to do with it. It's a platform that's built on top of a novel protocol. So love to dive into a little bit of the details too.
Yeah, let's talk more. So I have your website up. It's super slick. Like you you go on THEIA.finance, which is THEIA.finance, and you guys will see this too. But it's pretty sick, I would say, like very professional, right? It seems like it's still in the early access phase. As soon as you land, it says the future of Web3, which is pretty cool. Now, so yeah, you talked about the decentralized part of, Web3, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to create a market, or you guys are, or you and your team are trying to create a platform for content creators and artists, kind of like a marketplace.
It's a bit of in kind of an all-encompassing way. So what you see if you go on the landing page, you'll see something called collectives. Collectives they can be anything from DAOs to NFT projects to influencers to builders, whatever. You're basically just building a community. And what the function of collectives is that they basically create their own little micro vertical marketplace. So, if I'm a collective that all we care about is music and a specific genre of music, we can curate projects, creators, and that are on Web3 for that specific category, basically. I want to support, musicians releasing music NFTs, or, a DAO that's, musicians DAO that's creating a DAO token. And I would want to onboard that onto my little micro marketplace. And those collectives can support projects in two ways. There's a primary market feature, which is where you can help launch projects. And there's a secondary market feature in which you can basically sponsor projects that exist in the current market, kind of give your social cosign, so to speak. Like, hey, we love this project. We want people to bring it to our community, basically. And in both cases, the collective can earn a small commission from those efforts. So, they earn a small commission off of like a primary sale in NFT, for example, that they helped launch. Or they earn a commission from every secondary market trade of an asset that they onboard onto their marketplace. And as a result, it really kind of, in a way that, like, let's say you're on OpenSea and you trade, an NFT, 2.5% is going to OpenSea, right?
Right.
Treated in the same way, where it's like a commission, but instead of it going to OpenSea, it's going to this community, right? Like this community who co-sign this product, maybe give it a little bit of a spark because they're, a notable community in the space that, shows this artist some love and that has, some influence in the market. And so as a result, we think that by taking that decentralized sort of micro vertical approach to the problems of discovery and trust, we can kind of embolden communities as the curators of the kind of the future, right? We know that we're in a world of kind of a content overload where there's so much out there. There's so much, but it's all under the kind of the same banner. Like, even with NFTs, there's so much you can do with that tech. You can have a whole world of play to earn that has its own matrix of genres. You have a whole world of music. You have a whole world of art. You have a whole world of purely functional use cases, that could be brick and mortar. And it can be difficult to parse between all of that. And we think that DAOs and communities are kind of the secret sauce. They're kind of they're already aligned around a single vision or a single identity. And the best people to kind of curate and organize the Web3 world are those communities. And as a result, they're probably also some of the best people when it comes to trust. There are great filters for quality in the traditional worlds. Like if you think about something like venture capital, or even some parts of the creator economy, like on YouTube, multi-channel networks in theory. There are some great filters for quality in Web 2 or even the traditional world. But Web 3 is kind of lacking that a little bit. It's all about this decentralized, trustless approach, and we really believe in that. But we think that a person's voice and a person's knowledge should count for, what projects are good and what aren't, right? And we think, again, the best people to determine, what quality is in the space are the communities that are directly focused on that. I want to listen to the developers, builders, users, for a specific genre of video games about who's made the best version in that genre, right? And we think that's one of the big things that Web3 has to offer. And so we're trying to kind of crystallize that ethos, those principles into an easy to use, accessible platform that anybody can kind of get involved with.
So yeah, let's stay here for a second, because you said a lot of things, and I personally get it. What's happening here? You have people that can invest in another project, in another community, right? Or be part of another community, which they can kind of like buy as a token, right? By supporting that community, and eventually earn from what this community earns. You have the ability to form your own community, whether it's in gaming or whatever your genre is, right? Are you also serving it as when you start your community, are you also selling it as a Discord type of place where people are coming to communicate, or is it just invest here and we'll send you more information?
Right. So we want to build out the social aspect of it as much as possible, right? So with our whole platform, with our design, with our interface, we want to allow these communities to express themselves socially as much as they can. However, we also understand that it's a bit presumptuous and sometimes unhealthy to try and usurp the world, like, applications, right? To be like the super app, right?
Yep.
It's, if you try and say like, don't use Discord, use us. We understand and expect and really encourage these communities to have their off-chain and on-chain presences. We understand that those two things are linked in many ways. And so we just want to make sure that we can give easy access to all of those channels, right? So if you have a collective, you'll have all your social links, whether it's the Twitter, the Discord, the Medium, that are all there. So you can have your off-chain community-driven, conversations, chats, or whatever, events even. But also when it comes to the on-chain stuff, we understand that there's actually some really cool utility that you can do that's sort of unique to the on-chain element. And so we do want to offer, maybe it's like a forum, maybe it's something like more like a Reddit forum on each collective. Maybe it's, we understand that there's certainly a lot of utility that we can do to build out those profiles, and so we're really taking an active role there too.
Gotcha. Now, are you, so you launch your own project or collective?
Yeah.
Are you helping a game developer launch their own project and turn it into an NFT, or the utility behind it, or are you hooking them up with a developer? What's the process like? Or let's say I wanted to start an NFT project and I wanted to be part of your platform.
Sure, it's a great question. So first off, THEIA is, think of it as infrastructure. So we don't take a centralized approach to anything at all, right? We've laid out the landscape, and then it's really up to the community. So really, if I'm a builder, let's say I'm like you said, I'm trying to make an NFT project, right? First, you come to the platform, you create your project profile. All the information, profile picture, banner image, description, what you're trying to make, 1,000 NFTs. And then you have the choice of either minting NFTs directly on the platform through like a no-code solution, or you can import an existing contract. So if I built out my own smart contract with my own NFT kind of gambits, then you could basically hook that to our infrastructure and our protocol. And then after that process is complete, you then can take your project profile and basically apply to a collective. So you can go up to collectives, you can basically like this one, you can hit apply, and collectives, they'll get a notification from this project basically saying, oh, hey, this project maybe wants to get onboarded by you and launch on your collective. And then
I got it.
Yeah, and then the collective can look at the project's profile, can talk to the founders off-chain, on-chain, whatever they want, really, and do whatever diligence that they want to do. We understand that people have different views of what they like, right? And then if they're satisfied, basically the community, that is the collective, they make each member gets a thumbs up, thumbs down decision on that project. So if everybody hits thumbs up, or enough people do, a majority, then the project accepts basically the invitation. They're onboarded onto the collective, and then their launch basically begins. It can sort of become investable, so to speak, by the whole world. Anybody with a wallet can come to that collective and kind of buy whatever that project wants to offer. Now, this is where our kind of unique protocol comes into play, because we are all about protecting against basically eliminating hard rugs and vastly decreasing the likelihood of soft rugs. And we do this through basically what we call a novel escrow protocol. So let's say we're talking NFTs. Let's stick in that example. That's really easy. So if I'm, let's say, minting 1,000 NFTs, or I'm selling 1,000 NFTs for this project, I can set my mint price for those NFTs. Let's say it's 0.1 Ether or something. And somebody wants to buy one of those NFTs. What they do is they come to your project and they purchase basically an NFT as they would in a normal mint. Here's the difference though. When they actually do that, they're not buying the NFT outright immediately. What they're doing is depositing basically their money into our protocol's smart contracts, and they are issued an NFT that represents basically the right to mint the real thing.
Gotcha.
And by doing that, by creating that degree of separation between the supporter and native asset that a project's providing, what we can do is basically escrow that the money that they committed to the project. So the project doesn't actually get that money immediately. What they do is after a certain target's hit, the project can say, we want to sell at least 100 NFTs before we have to prove to anybody anything, or we got 100 commitments basically. Once a target is reached, a conversion period, length of which the project can set, so they can say 3 months, 6 months, kicks off. And during this period, any supporter on their own right, their own autonomy, can choose to basically send back the basically the representative NFT that they were issued for the real thing. So like, you know what, I want to commit. Like, I love it. I love this project. I want the real thing. And so I'm gonna basically send back this NFT to the protocol. And immediately when I do that, I get the real thing. I get to mint the real NFT. And then only at that point is the money that they committed to the project unlocked and sent to the project. So basically, we're eliminating this process that, like, let's say an NFT mints, where it's this 24-hour high stress endeavor where everybody FOMOs into it, and it's this like huge thing, and the project gets all this money. Basically, it's up to the project to convince the investors individually, or the supporters, whatever, or whoever's buying that NFT in that example, that they're both above board, that they're legitimate, and that they're doing something worthwhile, you know? Because otherwise, basically, if I wanted to back out of the project at any time, I basically sell my position back to the protocol. I can, instead of sending it back to the protocol, I can basically sell my representative NFT and take my money back. So I can take my own money back from the mints, and the project will never see it. And so as a result, can allow projects to basically gain a cast of supporters that are ready to commit, but then it's kind of up to the project to convince them to commit fully. And that creates just a layer of safety and security that we think would result in a much healthier dialogue between projects and people trying to support them in that sort of launch stage.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, one of the things I'm loving about this is the accountability aspect that you're holding the creator of the project to, because you're now saying, hey, yes, you could, I'm sure this could be set up in a way where, yes, by mint date, you'll have XYZ funds, $1.5, $2 million. However, if, let's say, the community or that collective or the project may have put something like, yes, but you already committed to doing 10% towards a charity or doing something else with it, that's when you'll, once you hit these quotas, that's when you'll get the funds, right? And I think that part is very valuable toward, and I get the technology. I mean, you're probably, you know much more than I do, and it makes sense. It makes sense what you're doing to me, but I think you also have this, you could set it up as an accountability thing to the project creator that, hey, you can't run away with this money once you're minted, because a lot of them, you know, they don't follow through with the utility parts. And so your platform is serving as a way to, yes, you're fully minted, but also you got to do XYZ before you can get the funds. I mean, to break it down, to dumb it down, I guess. Exactly.
Yeah. It's, and we understand that the cool part is that, you know, we're not like setting like rigid milestones, right? Like some people would say like, oh, like, would you do like a milestone program? It's like, no, because people have their own individual decisions. Like, you know, my like view on a project can be totally different than another person. But the idea that I'm now kind of a part of a community that's micro community almost, that's basically committed to this project. You know, if projects, you know, just goes quiet, if the founders go silent or something, and it seems like, what are they doing? You know, like I can pull out safely, you know, and I only have to expose myself fully to the projects when I'm the most comfortable, basically. And that decision can be different for everybody else. But yeah, inherently, it kind of creates a bit of an accountability culture and a proving stage for projects. But also, it creates a bit of a safer environment for project founders to test something out. There's a lot of talk in like the NFT space and the fungible token space as well about founders. There's no room to try stuff, because if you fail, it's not just failing, it's also a soft rug. it's also basically, it often gets viewed in the same light as a scam. You know, if you don't sell out your mint for an NFT, then the people who did mint it feel cheated. You know, they're like, well, I committed to it. You know, like where's my money? You know, like there's only 15 people committed out of 100 or something or whatever. And that can really put a blot on a founder's reputation, you know, and that's sometimes necessary, totally. Sometimes it's totally warranted. But sometimes, you know, you should be able to kick an idea out into the world and see if people want it and respond to it. And people like to vote their dollars in Web3. That's a really big way that people kind of show their opinions about things. And with this system, you can, in a really safe way, with really organic kind of dialogue, get people who would potentially be committed, but they don't have to feel like I'm like risking it all, you know, like I'm not, you know, exposing myself entirely. You can see whether or not an idea is validated in the real world, and your approach to it, you know, throughout your whole process, those initial nascent stages, without having to take this really high stress approach to things, where if you do fail for whatever reason, and that can sometimes even be market conditions, it's sort of a permanent blot on your resume.
Makes sense.
So we think that's a really attractive proposition for founders as well.
100%. Do you have a specific target audience?
So we are out of the gate. We really want to target some industries that really have a big appetite for Web3, but are suffering as a result of the way that things currently operate. One big one's like the music industry. So musicians, you know, in a lot of creatives in that space have always been looking for a way to kind of get around the exploitative environment that they're currently in, right? Whether it's record labels or even streaming platforms to an extent. And, you know, you saw with the big acquisition of like Napster, there's always been this appetite for, if I could just get directly to my people, like, you know, whatever, you know, if having that peer-to-peer element, you know, that appetite for Web3 in the space and the utility of it is always been really there. But the problem is the way people musicians get exposed to Web3 is through like an NFT mint, you know, like where it's, again, super high stress. If you don't sell out in 24 hours or 48, you're a failure, you're a rug, you know. The only way to market yourself is kind of scammy, you know, it's overall not very healthy. And so as a result, they go to platforms like SoundMint or Hi-Fi Labs, you know, that it's like a DAO, to help them onboard, you know, these DAOs, these communities, these platforms, and basically help you. They'll help you with the marketing, they'll help you onboard, you know, they'll help you with the mints. But these communities have to dedicate 100% of their resources to like one musician at a time, because again, the stakes are so high.
True.
And so as a result, you know, we've spoken to somebody like Hi-Fi Labs. They really like the concept of becoming a collective, basically, where we can onboard, you know, instead of one artist at a time doing a mint every 3 months, we can put 20 artists on our collective and allow them to accrue committed supporters organically over a longer period of time, you know. So then when they're actually ready to go, you know, their value proposition has been really solidified. And so that extends their range in a big way. So, you know, art and music DAOs is a really big initial stage that we want to go to, but also like DAO tooling platforms. We understand that, you know, even making something like a DAO in the space is, when it comes to making the governance, you know, making the token, that's relatively straightforward. But then there's always that lingering element of like, okay, how do we assemble the treasury? How do we actually raise the treasury for this? How do we pull the capital? And again, it's kind of falls into the same problems, you know, the same high stress, you know, that kind of issue. And so we really want to allow DAOs to form on our platform in a big way. And to be a little bit more specific, you can talk about like nonprofit. You know, nonprofits is a really good area for DAOs, because it's all the rage right now to talk about financial, accountability and openness in the nonprofit space. And the DAO structure is really, that's what it's all about, right? You can see where the money is, what it's doing, how this charity's, working. And, we think that's a huge use case. And we want to be kind of, again, a healthy platform for those nonprofits to leverage that technology, right? In kind of an open, community-driven way. And then I think for a third one is, again, something like play to earn. We love the gaming space. We love the builders. We want to support builders and developers in that way too. And we know that there's so many types of games and projects that get pushed under the rug in the traditional space because it's not AAA, it's not indie. It's like a little thing. It's this little micro project. It's this one-off thing. Maybe it's a 15-minute micro game experience. Maybe it's a mini game on something like Roblox or something where it's this micro sort of experience. And that goes for the broader sort of metaverse economy as well, where people have architects that build in a sandbox and that kind of thing. And we want to allow those communities and builders to come together and support projects, whether they're existing in the market already or launching in that way as well, because there's no better people to support than their own.
That's so good. Yeah, you spoke about music in the Web3 space. I was at VCon a few weeks back, Gary Vee's conference in Minneapolis, and Snoop Dogg and his son. I mean, that's one of the areas that they are focused on, right? Helping other artists in this space.
Right.
And it's gonna, like cut some of the middleman, right? And help artists go directly to the consumer, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's gonna make it easier. And your platform sounds like could be the one to help bridge that gap, right?
We're really. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. No, it's fine.
We're really all about kicking off the next big adoption cycle too. We want to be a platform that breaks down the barriers of Web3. You hear a lot in the news or you hear a lot online that Web3 is not user friendly. It's hard to navigate. It's hard to engage with. And if it's any way more difficult than Web2 without providing all the utility that it does, it's not going to be adopted in the way that we want. And so, for every facet of our design, from the protocol to the interface to the mechanisms to the way people interact on the platform and across the platform and other things, we're really trying to build as much intuition to it as possible, so that if you are somebody like Snoop Dogg or Gary Vee, want to support an up-and-coming artist and you want to bring them into the ecosystem, there's not this brick wall in the way. There's not this huge hurdle that they have to get over. They don't have to be educated for a month on how to navigate, how to use everything. We think there's a lot more space for intuition in the Web3 space and user-centered design and human-centered design, and that's a really big part of what we're trying to do, and we're trying to make it, again, through the safety and security element, but also just the user element as well.
I love it. Yeah, and you mentioned nonprofits, and again, going back to accountability, right? I say this to my wife all the time. There's some nonprofits I like out there, but I don't see where the money goes. I don't see them posting what they did with the money.
Right.
And to me, that's a big concern, not knowing where the money goes. I'd rather give someone $100 cash than giving it to an organization, not knowing what they do with the funds.
Right. So. Yeah. It's tough, right? Because every time you see something like you're donating to, say the Amazon or something, you think that your $20 is going exactly to that problem. But sometimes it might be going to the intern that they just hired that files stuff or something, and that's exactly the structure of, and sometimes that's necessary, that's fine. But I think the the attitude that people want is they just want one, for something like in the nonprofit space, for inefficiencies to be streamlined because they're supposed to solve a problem, right? And it's supposed to be like, solving a problem, being, clear execution, and there's nothing that streamlines an efficiency like financial transparency, right? But then there's also the unfortunate part where it's like sometimes you can't trust a nonprofit. Sometimes you do take the $20 that you're thinking of donating to UNICEF and you're like, have to second guess it. Like, I don't know, like, do I want to do it or not? And it's kind of sad because you shouldn't have to, right? And I think a lot of nonprofits that are totally above board, totally, really, do the right thing and live by the right, rules and operate the right way, want to separate themselves from that stereotype. They want to say like, no, we are the right, we're doing this the right way. We're here to solve the problem in the right way. And I think, again, like something like a DAO infrastructure really allows for that. But you're going to have to get from here to there, right? If obviously in a perfect world, every nonprofit's run in a DAO structure, or at least like has a DAO treasury of some sort. Mm-hmm. But you got to get there. And so really what we're trying to do with THEIA is help bridge that gap in a really, safe and secure way. It's where you don't have to feel like you're risking it all by entering Web3. We think that that's the kind of the mainstream consensus, where it's like this sort of ethereal plane, pardon the pun, where it's you don't really know what you're getting into. It's a bit of the Badlands, it's a bit of the Wild West, right? And there's a lot of crazy cool stuff going on, but it's also a little odd, a little freaky. And
yep.
And we want to make it so it's like, no, actually there's a lot that's really cool here, and you engage with it and feel comfortable doing so. And if we feel like there are enough of those bridges are created, whether it's us or other platforms, we can really actually move to Web3 as a totality kind of thing, where
the
instead
whole
of
space,
Web2 and Web3 existing in parallel, it's now Web3 completely, right?
I agree. It needs to be easier to use and interact with than Web2, right? It shouldn't be like, hey, I got to spend 50, 60 hours in order to understand. I mean, I think some people are going to have to feel the pain, like you and I, which have done a lot of research and hours. And obviously, it's an investment too for us. So we don't want to lose our funds and know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But not everyone does have to go through that same pain point. Now, how many people you got on your team?
So we have our teams rounded out to 10 at the moment. So it's obviously us 3 founders. We have UI designers, we have front-end developers, full stack, as well as our contract engineers, an amazing PM that really just absolutely kicks ass and has really made something great with the protocol. And also our community manager, who's, again, he's really great as well. He's really, ironically, he came from the community. Like, he was just a guy who had a lot of experience in working in social channels for other protocols, other companies, and Web2 and Web3, but just really connected with the vision and wanted to get on board. So, we couldn't be more happy with the team.
Nice. Are you completely live or still in the beta phase?
So yeah, we are currently, our platform is running in beta on the Avalanche testnet. So the final product will be fully EVM compatible. So all Ethereum enabled chains, as well as we're building on a Rust base as well. So that would go for Near, Solana, those kind of chains. And
so is this sorry to interrupt, is this on the Ethereum blockchain, or will it operate on?
It'll operate on every Ethereum enabled chain, right? So that's Ethereum, Avalanche, Polygon, and also, as well as every major Rust-based chain, so Near, Solana, etc. And that goes, basically, that's how we've designed our protocol. So we have a lot of interoperability and bridges between chains, and we've abstracted the entire backend to where if I'm somebody who's Ethereum and I have an Ethereum wallet, I can invest in an Avalanche-based project without having to like switch networks and change all this stuff.
I got it.
And then it goes for the other way too. If I'm a project founder I'm building a project for Polygon, I can receive supporters from Ethereum, and so again, we think that's a really important thing for making Web3 more accessible, right? So just making the chain differential not an issue. So working with a really amazing IC provider, Exceller, they have an amazing cross bridge basically solution that we have partnered with that we're super confident in. But yeah, back to your initial question. So we're currently on our testnet, and we will be basically from here on out, we'll be entering a stage of gradual decentralization. So when we do push to the mainnet after our security audit, we will start out basically where we take a centralized approach, where basically the platform becomes the first collective. So our team is like the first collective. We'll onboard a really small collection of projects. And then we'll have basically a beta stage in which we have curated select collectives. And we've already made some great partnerships there that we're really excited about. And then we'll move to the fully permissionless stage where anybody can create a collective, anybody can create a project, and that will all happen within rapid quick succession. So we are looking to have our permissionless launch within basically 6 months, 6 to 8 months, and we'll have our mainnet launch basically significantly before then.
Gotcha. That's exciting. That's really exciting. How are you marketing and promoting your project and the whole THEIA?
So we're taking both a bottom up and a top down approach. So we have our community. We have I think we pushed 11,000 on Twitter recently, and I think
nice.
The Discord, and I think 15,000 users on the testnet currently at this point. But that's beautiful. All people who would be like supporters. They'd be people who'd be buying assets. They'd be. But in terms of the top down, this is where we really feel like we can separate ourselves in terms of quality out of the gate. We basically are going to notable DAOs, communities, whether those are NFT collections or platforms themselves. Like I mentioned, Hi-Fi Labs earlier, but also like Webiverse. They're a big development house for the metaverse, and then also something like Meta Labs or XDAO, and going to them and basically saying, hey, would you want to be a collective when we launch this thing? And when we do that, we can basically form a partnership with those groups and get commitments from them for that when we launch the beta, they'll be ready. Gotcha. And then as a result, those communities can onboard their entire ecosystems, right? Like whether it's builders, supporters, people already floating around, we think that's a really good growth hack, a really good scalable solution. And then also that'll go for the same for like, NFT communities. We've designed collectives to be, you can either create your own asset that represents the governance of the collective on the platform, or you can import your own. So if you're like an NFT collection, the founder or whoever owns the private key can basically import the collection where every NFT represents your ownership in the collective, right? So if I own a Bored Ape or something, I have the membership in the Bored Ape community. Or if they want, they could use ApeCoin instead, right? The actual DAO token, right? We think that interoperability helps out a lot. And so,
Cool.
that's there. But then also, we're forming some network partnerships as well. So we formed a network partnership with Avalanche, as well as Exceller, who is our IBC solution, and Near. So Near, we actually just received a grant from the Near Foundation, and those chains, while maybe not necessarily becoming collectives on the platform, certainly offer us deal flow. Basically, they have these amazing ecosystems. They have their own funds that they support projects, and they've been looking for a solution to get the projects that they support into, the world, into this, basically the hands of many in a safe and secure way, right? Where they're not worried about it like blowing up, pumping, doing all that kind of stuff. And they look at us as a really attractive solution there. So, we're really, really encouraged by the fact that, like a mass entity like Avalanche or Near would back us that way.
And kind of lastly, I mean, not necessarily, but how can people can use this as an investment form, one, and two, how are you and your team benefiting from it?
So THEIA, the platform, we typically charge a 2% commission off of every primary sale. So every time a primary sale launches. And then we have a 1% secondary commission for every secondary market sale that occurs on those, again, micro verticalized marketplaces. But that commission is waived. So it's actually eliminated if you use our native token, which is called T. And we have some other elements of utility for T. It also has to work with being the principal currency that you buy basically stakes in collectives with, and et cetera. And then we also have a subscription model that you can use as a collective to basically waive gas fees. So we will operate, long story short, a lot of these collectives on high-speed, low gas networks like Avalanche or even Polygon to an extent. But to waive gas completely, you can basically pay we've modeled it to be between 50 and 100 USDC per month to completely, just waive gas. And so that's where we can kind of benefit as the team. But generally, it's in that kind of commission model.
Gotcha. Besides that, is there any upfront cost for someone looking to sign up besides the commission?
Yeah, if you have a wallet, you can connect. So that's another thing that I'm really glad you brought up, because if you're looking at like launch pads in the space, or launch pads especially, a lot of them are token gated, or you have to make like a capital commitment to even get involved. Whether it's a builder or as somebody who's looking to support the projects, buy in. And for us, we want to open basically the floodgates, allow for accessibility across all means. And so if you have a wallet, you can engage with all facets of the platform. That's buying assets on the platform, starting your own projects, starting your own collectives.
Gotcha. That's so good. Well, I think we're almost near the end here. Where can we support you, and where can we find out more about the project?
Yeah. So we have, obviously you mentioned our website. That's, THEIA.finance. That's our landing page where you can find a lot of our materials. There's a link to our testnet MVP if you want to try it out. There's also our white paper there. And then additionally, we have our Twitter, which is at THEIA_labs. And so that's on Twitter. And those are our primary channels. We also have a Discord. So on our landing page and on our Twitter, we have links to our Discord where you can come in and join our community. We have an alpha testing group that are that's kind of our innermost circle, that those guys really get to get hands-on with some of the, the newest features. They come in as we kind of layer this whole platform in, and we really encourage people to take part in our testing process as we're refining these elements, because again, to get this intuition right, we want to make sure that we have as many humans touch it as possible, right? So we can get as much feedback. And so we really encourage people to try it out, leave your feedback, let us know if there's anything more you'd want us to add, as we layer these things in and kind of get involved. So yeah, that's really where you can find us.
That's awesome. I'm super excited, man. Maybe we can do this in about 6-7 months from now, where you'll probably be closer to that mainstream going live.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
And even if it goes longer, I mean, there's so much to learn in this process, but I'm excited, man. The whole Web3 space, it's exciting to me. I actually just had another podcast, with another guy that he's not doing something similar, but he's more in the launchpad type of phase. He's in real estate, and I think there's a lot of opportunity. This is bringing the best out of so many people, and I see so many people trying to, they have the right intentions, right, with Web3. There are the scammers and the rug pulls, like you
Right.
said, and which your project is helping fight against it in a way. But at the end of the day, I think there's so many good people trying to do good in the space, and that's why I'm like super optimistic about the space. I know that it's not as hype as last year, but it's better. It's better this way, that people are more optimistic, more realistic, rather.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot to, like you said, there's so much that's being done, and there's so many use cases to cover that it's also a bit overwhelming. So sometimes when it's a bit quieter, when it's a little bit of a gold rush, it's a real builder's economy. And I think that really helps fuel the upgrades to this, this ecosystem. And
Sure.
And I think, there's so much potential and so many potential use cases, and I'm really excited. I think we've already crossed the point at which the adoption cycle will continue. I think there was that point in 2016 when we had like a big bump in Bitcoin, and we kind of went back down for a couple of years, and you could make the argument that was just a bit of speculation, and there was a lot of buying and holding, but not much else. I think with how Ethereum has, really came along, and alt chains, more specifically utility through the blockchain beyond just the currency elements, I think that the fact that those adoption rates are continuing to increase is the really encouraging part. That is what I think makes me believe that we really cracked the friction of getting involved in this as a basically a risk. And it's only up from here.
Oh, for sure. For me, it felt like legit real at VCon, where there were over 10,000 people.
Right.
The energy, I mean, there's so many of us out there, and that's a fraction of the community, obviously, but seeing 10,000 people from all over the world, Australia, Germany, Peru, all over Europe, all over the world, it's like, it's insane, right? Like, this community is real, and there's people doing the same thing we're trying to do here, like growing in the Web3 space. And it's great. I think those who learn, this technology, the sooner you learn it, the more you're going to stand to benefit, because you're going to be making the right investments and the right decisions.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, exciting times in a lot of ways.
Yeah, man.
Sure.
Yeah. Rorke, thank you so much, my man. And I hope
thank you so much for having me.
To see you again soon. Probably about 10 days or so, should have the podcast up.
Sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was a pleasure, man. Thank you.
All right.